As you're planning your newsletter, you need to consider your budget. Your costs will vary depending on the format and materials you use. If you're creating a print newsletter, you need to consider the cost of materials such as the paper you will use, the cost of printing, folding, and or stapling, stuffing envelopes, and then of course those mailing costs. Will you print using color or only black and white? Color captures attention, but it's much more costly to print. Paper quality varies. Will you use newsprint or high-quality glossy paper? Will you use a standard 8.5 by 11 size paper and staple the pages together, or will you use a larger format and fold your newsletter? How long will your newsletter be? The longer it is, the more paper and printing will be involved, pushing costs up even more. I could go on. Many of these issues are not problems if you create an electronic newsletter. For example, color does not cost more online and length does not matter as much, at least in terms of costs, but you do still have to be careful not to ramble or include too much stuff. Nor do you have the mailing costs. It's important to note, though, in terms of formatting, electronic newsletters require a different way of looking at how people read them. You also need to consider who will create the newsletter, whether it's on paper or electronic. Will one person be responsible for content design and mailing? Will it be a team? Will different people provide the content? Putting it all together will require internal deadlines so that the newsletter can be published and mailed on schedule. Then you need to think about what will go into each newsletter. For long newsletters, you will need a table of contents. Next, consider whether you will have regular articles by certain people. Will you have a feature article or personal profiles? Will you have editorials or columns from experts? What about announcements? Here, you will need to consider your purpose for the newsletter. What do you want your audience to learn from it? And what will your audience want to know? Finally, boilerplate copy can help save some time in each newsletter. Boilerplate copy is the information that's standard and would appear in every newsletter. For example, contact information or a company's mission statement or the history of the company. Boilerplate copy is used in most types of professional writing, including things like reports, because there's some things that just don't change very often. The history of the company doesn't change all that much. It is important, of course, to check your boilerplate copy to make sure that the changes are not yet needed. When you're designing your newsletter, try to create a personality or a theme. That way, your newsletter will be more recognizable at a glance. It also provides consistency for your readers. Consider the way in which you read something on paper versus the screen. If you're creating an electronic newsletter, plan your format so that it's easier to read on a screen. For example, long vertical columns are more difficult to read on the screen if you have to scroll up and down. It's better to have shorter columns spread horizontally across the screen and not force your reader to scroll up and down and so on. Finally, always be clear about things like who is publishing the newsletter. Be truthful about your information. Never try to make things look better than they are in reality. Now, briefing notes serve very specific purposes: to inform a decision maker, such as a boss or a politician, about issues. Some briefing notes are created every day from the news reports from the previous day. This is especially important for politicians who have to know about and understand any issues that they might be asked about by reporters or in question period in the legislature. Briefing notes must be very clear, concise, and reliable so that they can be read by someone with little or no background in the subject area. Managers and politicians deal with lots of information and decisions on a daily basis. They are held accountable for actions taken or not taken, no matter whether they knew about the problem or not. Because of this, they expect to be kept up to date with reliable information as it happens, no matter when or where. This means that they're not concerned with things like workload issues. If it needs to be done, their employees must get it done, even if it's the weekend or a holiday. In terms of structure, there are some similarities to other types of writing that we've looked at. You want to keep it short, one page for one topic. Remember, a manager or a politician will have several briefing notes under review at any time. Be concise, make every word count. Always fact-check your information, especially dates. Your briefing note must be very reliable because decisions may be made based on it. Be clear, avoid jargon, and make sure to use plain language so no misunderstandings can occur. In terms of content, start with 1 or 2 lines stating the purpose, then provide the summary of the facts, background, evolution, or history of the problem, and so on. Then move to the current status. What's happening right now? Make sure your summary is unbiased. End with possible alternatives by suggesting what will happen if different things occur, and then provide a conclusion or recommendation. This is a lot of information to include on one page, so it's really important to be concise and to the point. Now, in order to be clear in your briefing note, you need to be clear in your own mind about why you are writing it. So you need to be clear about your purpose. You need to be clear about who you are writing for, your audience, what is most important for your reader to know, the points you will cover, and how you will structure your information. Lay all this information out before you start writing. After your briefing notes have been drafted, go back and check to make sure that everything's clear, that nothing has been left out, that it's logical, and that there are no errors in spelling or grammar or that there's no typos as well. In this video, we have briefly discussed some types of professional writing as well as some key tips. Once you develop the skills to write well, you can apply them to any format you are required to use. Thank you for listening.